Hi, it's Mrs. Miller. So we're back for chapter 4 in the missing manatee. At the end of chapter 3, Skeeter was really sad when they went back because they couldn't find the manatee, and he doesn't think that much is actually going to be done. He played quarters or flip with Blink and Blink's dog. We learned that he is Dirty Dan's son, and we've been introduced to another new character, Memaw, who is getting ready for a karaoke contest. So, chapter 4. Memaw hogged the bathroom for about an hour, taking a long bath and fooling with her hair. Before she came out, she called to Mom and me. "Don't you two look yet. I want you to see me with my whole outfit on so you can get the full effect." Mom shook her head and gave me a look and a little smile as if to say, here she goes again. For a mother and daughter, Mom and Memaw were pretty different. It was weird, but I thought Mac and Memaw were more alike. Mom was always saying Memaw ought to act her age. Memaw said, why should she? With Mom acting old enough, like an old stick in the mud for the both of them. Once they didn't know I was listening. Mom said Memaw was embarrassing. Memaw said she couldn't understand why Mom had to be the ant in the lemonade at every picnic. What do you think that means? The ant in the lemonade at every picnic. Good thing to think on. I tried to stay out of it, but it seemed to me that Memaw was having a lot more fun than Mom. And anyway, Memaw never embarrassed me. A couple of minutes later, Memaw hollered from the bedroom, "I'm coming out. You ready?" "We're ready, Memaw," I hollered back. "Bring it on." The door opened and Memaw stood in front of us with her hands on her hips, posing like a movie star. Then she threw her arms out and spun around so we could get the whole picture. Her blonde hair was piled up high in loops and curls, held with sparkly silver and blue clips. She was wearing her denim shirt, all decorated with silver fringe and sequins. Her jeans had a row of sequins down the side of each leg, which she must have just sewn on, and she was wearing a belt with a big silver heart-shaped buckle. Around her neck, she tied a red cowgirl bandana, and she was wearing her favorite red cowgirl boots. "Well," she asked, "what do you think?" "Wow, Memaw," I said. "You look like a singer on TV." "Not too bad for an old grandma, am I?" "No way. You look great." "Thank you, darling." She gave me a dazzling red lipstick smile. Then, snapping her fingers with one hand and holding a pretend microphone in the other, she launched into a song I've heard her practicing around the house. It was called "These Boots Are Made for Walking." When she started singing, Mom clapped and I stood up and cheered and let out my loudest whistle. "Go, Memaw, knock 'em dead." After a minute or two, she got to the part of the song where she stopped singing and sort of talks with her boots, telling them to start walking. At that, Memaw held her chin up real high, pumped her arms back and forth, and marched in place, stomping her feet like anything. It was pretty spectacular. When she'd finished, I said, "You got a contest to win. You got that contest won, Memaw." No point in the rest of them even showing up. "You really think so, Skeeter?" she said, giving me a big perfumey hug. "I hope you're right. I'd dearly love to win that home karaoke setup they're giving out for a prize." Mom made a little choking sound in her throat right then, and I could tell she wasn't exactly thrilled about the prospect of Memaw practicing new songs with musical backup right there in the living room. I said, "That'll be great, Memaw," and I meant it too. We got to the River Haven Grill at 6 o'clock. The contest didn't start until 7, but Memaw said she wanted to get a good seat and check out the competition. Mom and I ordered burgers, but Memaw said her stomach was too jittery to eat. Jittery would be nervous. She's really nervous. She ordered a Lone Star beer and to get in the mood. I guess that's what cowgirls like to drink. We sat on the outside patio where a contest was going to be held and watched people as they drifted in. Memaw checked everybody over with an eagle eye. "Don't worry, Memaw," I told her. "Don't any of them look half as good as you." "Thanks, darling," she said. "But you can't always tell by looking. Sometimes a dull brown bird can make a mighty sweet song." Well, I guess, but still, I felt sure Memaw would win. Then I heard Mom take a sudden sharp breath. I turned in the direction she was looking and saw Mac walk into the patio with Earl and Dirty Dan. "There's Mac," I said, "and look who he dragged in with him," Mom said dryly. That, aptly named Dirty Dan. It killed me that Mom didn't like Dan. She called him shiftless because he didn't have a real job. I tried to explain to her that he didn't need a job. He made money at poker and by winning tarpon tournaments. If he was strapped for cash, he'd take a client out tarpon fishing for a pay. But mostly, he just fished for himself. Mom thought even fishing guides who worked regularly were shiftless. So her opinion of Dan was right down there in the mud with the crabs. I guess Dan's 4 wives probably agreed with Mom, now that I thought about it. But I didn't care. Dan was a lot of things I hoped to be someday. And anyway, he was Mac and Memaw's friend. There was a famous story about Dan I never got tired of hearing. It always came with a warning. Don't even think of trying it yourself. One day when he was out fishing, Dan hooked up a giant tarpon. He fought it for about 3 hours. Finally, when it was getting tired, a hammerhead shark showed up and started circling around. They do that sometimes. When they sense a fish is in trouble, they figure on getting themselves an easy meal. But there was no way Dirty Dan the Tarpon Man was going to give up his record tarpon to a shark. No, sir. So he jumped right into the water, which was only a couple feet deep, with his rod in one hand and a fish club in the other. Some people think hammerheads are kind of a joke because they look so silly. I mean, they have those weird rectangle-shaped heads that look like they were put on sideways, and their eyes are way out on the ends. But they are seriously scary predators with huge mouths and rows of real sharp teeth. They get big too. Anyway, Dan stood right up in the water and whacked that 10-foot-long monster on the head every time it came near his fish. After a while, the shark gave up and swam away. Each time I heard the story, I had to laugh, picturing that shark swimming off, wondering in its prehistoric little brain, what the heck is going on? Dirty Dan landed his record tarpon, and there wasn't a bite missing. He wasn't called the Tarpon Man for nothing. "I'm going to go say hi, okay?" I asked Mom. "Sure, honey." She smiled at me when she said it, but it was one of those forced smiles. I hated times like this, when I wanted to be with both Mom and Mac like before, and the only way I could do that was to split myself down the middle. "I'll be back in a second," I said, and raced over to where Mac and his friends were taking seats across the patio. "Hey there, Skeet," said Mac, grabbing me in a bear hug. "I hear you got yourself deputized today. Or were you just trying to give Earl here a lesson on how to run a boat? Lord knows he could use it." "You hear that, Skeet?" said Earl, shaking his head sadly. "You think your daddy would know better than to smart mouth off to an officer of the law." Dirty Dan said, "I believe there's strict penalties for sassing a deputy. Isn't that right, Officer Earl?" "Yes, sir," said Earl. "Very strict." Pointing his finger at Mac, Earl said, "Looks like you're going to have to bring the food and the beer tonight, old buddy." "No problem," Mac answered cheerfully. "You two just bet the way you always do, and I'll double my money back before 8 o'clock. Then he looked at me and said, "Earl told me how you found the manatee this morning." I nodded and looked hopefully at Earl, but he shook his head. "No news yet." "Strange the way it wasn't there when you went back," Mac went on. "How do you figure a thing like that?" I shrugged and said, "I don't know, but I'd sure like to see the person who did it go to jail." Then, grinning at Dirty Dan, I imitated his deep voice and added, "I believe there's strict penalties for that." I expected Dan to come back with a wisecrack, but instead he said, "I believe I heard Max say you're on vacation from school. Is that right, Skeet?" "Yeah. Have you caught yourself a tarpon on the fly yet?" "No," I admitted. "I've caught a couple of bait, though." Dan snorted. I knew what he thought about bait fishing for tarpon. To Dan, The only way to take one of the big, beautiful silver beauties was on a fly. You want to come tarpon fishing with me someday this week, he asked. Wow. Did I want to go tarpon fishing with Dirty Dan, the tarpon man? Do fish swim? I looked at Mac, seeing the hesitation on his face. I knew that what he was thinking. Mom wouldn't approve. But Mac also knew how badly I wanted to catch tarpon on the fly. How many times I'd tried and failed. He'd taken me out a lot, but Mac was primarily a bait fisherman. Dirty Dan was a fly fisherman exclusively, and he was the best. With Dan, I had a real chance. Mac understood that. I willed him to say yes. What he said was, I'll have to talk to your mom about it, Skeet. Right. Mac couldn't make his own decision about me the way he used to. He had to talk over every little thing with Mom. I scowled in frustration. What does scowled mean? Think about that. He really wants to do this? Dad doesn't want him to. Aw. Let's think about that.